Senator Leyonhjelm.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Finance, Senator Cormann. Minister, in 2009 you referred to the socialism we had to have under Gough Whitlam, who thought he could spend his way out of trouble and went to great lengths to borrow more and more money. I agree. After 3 years, Whitlam left Australia with a deficit of $1.5 billion, government spending at 24% of GDP and tax receipts at 20%. Your government, after 3 years, has left Australia with a deficit of $37 billion, government spending at 25% of GDP and tax receipts at 22%. Whitlam left no debt. Net debt is now $317 billion. Are you more socialist than Whitlam?
The Minister for Finance, Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President. I thank Senator Leyonhjelm for that question. The short answer to that question is, of course, no. What I would do is refer Senator Leyonhjelm and the Senate to the most recent Budget Paper 1 and the very helpful time series on page 10-5 and 6, which starts in the year of my birth, 1970, and covers 50 years all the way to 2020. And what you will say is that before Gough Whitlam got into government, spending as a share of GDP was 19%, and it increased by a massive 5% as a share of GDP in 3 short years. And in fact, in the last 2 years of the 3-year term of the Gough Whitlam government, spending increased above inflation by 19.9% and by 15.7% respectively. That is unprecedented in that 50-year period that is published in these budget papers. The only other double-digit increase in spending above inflation that we've experienced in that whole time happened under, you guessed it, the first budget of the Rudd Labor government in 2009, when spending increased by 12.7% above inflation, 17% over 2 years, and took spending back to 25% as a share of GDP. Now, not to be outdone, the Gillard government, of course, locked in legislation, further spending increases in legislation, but they were more sneaky that they did it outside the published forward estimates, so it wasn't obvious in the forward estimates documents. So when we came into government, spending as a share of GDP was on track to 26.5% by 23-24, and indeed in excess of 30% according to the intergenerational report over time. We've brought that back down now to 25%. We've got spending growth under control. That has involved some difficult decisions, but of course we know that the Labor Party in the lead up to the last election promised spending that would have worsened the deficit by $16.5 billion.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Leyonhjelm, supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Minister, in your previous comments you have referred to the Gillard-Rudd government as Whitlam-esque. In the year Rudd left office, tax receipts were 21% of GDP and net debt was $202 billion. Tax receipts and net debt are now higher under your government, and you project this will remain the case in the future. Doesn't this make you more Whitlam-esque than Rudd?
Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Well, what Senator Leyonhjelm ignores is, of course, the spending increases and the tax increases that Labor locked into legislation before they lost government. And of course what we've been doing is dismantle some of it, scrapping the mining tax and the carbon tax, for example, reducing income taxes for hardworking families, proposing at the last election to reduce taxes for businesses that employ Australians to 25% in order to ensure that we're internationally competitive. And of course we've spending over the medium term in net terms by $250 billion. These are spending reductions not that we have proposed but that we've actually implemented. The other thing I would say is that we have in our budgets a tax as a share of GDP cap of 23.9%. Labor has no cap. They went to the last election promising more than $100 billion in higher taxes, which would have hurt the economy and cost jobs. Labor is still the socialist party, and they're more socialist under Bill Shorten than they ever were.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering the question has expired. Final supplementary question, Senator Leyonhjelm.
Thank you, Mr President. Minister, the government could balance the budget and pay back debt by cutting spending in the budget bills. The Senate would not be a barrier, as Labor has committed to pass budget bills ever since Gough Whitlam's dismissal. Wouldn't the use of budget bills to balance the budget, rather than to blow it, be an elegant way to prove that you are not like Whitlam?
Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr President. If only it was that easy, we actually would have done that by now. I mean, the truth of the matter is that around 75% of total Australian government expenditure is made through special appropriations under distinct legislation, not through the annual appropriation bills, and that is of course the mechanism that the Gillard government used to tie up Australia in a massively unfunded and unaffordable spending growth in the years well beyond her termination as the termination of her government for Australia. Special appropriations establish payments which the government is obligated to make by the Parliament through such distinct legislation until or unless the Parliament agrees to change or remove those specific and distinct pieces of legislation. And indeed, to the extent that we can achieve savings through annual appropriations, we have of course already done so, and that is a matter of public record that we have done as much as we can through the appropriation bills. But in the end, the government acts.
Thank you,
is
Minister.
responsible
The time for answering the question has